Like, now that I think about it,
it felt like a bait and switch.
Yeah,
like it felt like a really
like
Hey guys, welcome back to the video. Bradley and I just got out of watching Across the Spiderverse, and in this video we're going to be giving you guys all of our spoiler-filled thoughts. We'll start off the video by just giving our quick spoiler-free thoughts, and as always, let us know your thoughts on the movie in the comments down below. Feel free to spoil away. And before we get into it, like and subscribe so you don't miss my ranking of all of the Spider-Man movie coming later this weekend. But without wasting any more time, let's get right into it. Bradley, quick spoiler-free thoughts. What did you think about the movie?
I liked it. I don't know if it's as good as the first. I think I still enjoyed the first more as a movie overall, but I thought this one was great. They upped the ante a lot in terms of like the visuals and just the action and everything, even in some aspects of story and drama.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that later. But yeah, I think like they really definitely just tried to up themselves from the last one, and I think that it was a really good and entertaining experience.
Yeah, I think in general, Bradley and I talked about this right when the movie ended, but obviously, and we have that initial comparison to Into the Spider-Verse, and I think in terms of topping a sequel on a technical level, they 100% achieved it. Like, everything is like 10 times more colorful, way more types of animation. They just really knocked out of the ballpark in that element, but obviously I think where my problems come in with this movie is the story. And I do want to say right out of the gate that I checked the Letterboxd score for this movie. As of right now, as of recording, it's a 4.7 out of 5, which is crazy to me because I feel like a lot of times what people critique about these comic book movies is the story and how sometimes it's very lackluster, it's not put at the forefront. And honestly, it feels like this is the exact movie that people complain about in terms of style over substance. And so I feel like with Across the Spider-Verse, I just felt like it was style over substance, sadly, to an extent. Not fully, like I wouldn't make that bold claim that it's style over substance 100% of the time, but I just didn't really think the story just did it for me personally. But with that being said, I think we dive into spoilers. Yeah. I want to talk about the ending of the movie and the cliffhanger it leaves us on. So to quickly recap, basically we find out that Miles, when he left that Spider-Man HQ, got transported into the Universe 42, if I'm not mistaken. That's what it was, where that's the initial spider that bit him. And we also find out that he wasn't meant to be Spider-Man. And we also find out that the Prowler in the universe that Miles' spider is from is Miles Morales. So all those things happen basically within 20 minutes of themselves, and that's kind of what is going to lead us into the next movie. So what did you think about the ending?
I thought the ending, I think it's always, I think it's always a big risk anytime we do like a part 1, part 2 kind of story. So I mean, that just initially, I'm shocked this movie kind of made that kind of decision, like, well, at least with this kind of ending. But I thought it was cool to an extent. Like, I like him being stuck in a different universe. The Prowler, like, being him that was a cool twist. The Uncle Aaron thing, the way they executed that was awesome. By the way, like that whole scene of him talking to his mom, finally having that big moment. Yeah, which I do think like now that I think about it,
it felt like a bait and switch.
Yeah,
like it felt like a really
because when I first I was like, this movie didn't have like any kind of really payoff. I know that even though it's a part 1 of a larger story, like I was still spending kind of some smaller payoff, but it kind of like takes like
it deviates from that completely.
It gives you the payoff, but it's not his mom, so it just didn't work out. But he kind of did have that kind of coming of age moment. Yeah, they kind of subvert that expectation of it. So I thought that's kind of cool.
The thing is that pissed me off strictly because we spent the first hour of the movie with him fighting with his parents, and all of that like classic coming of age idea, all of that's explored in the first hour. And then it's kind of a bait and switch where we'd never really get anything from it, like exactly in this movie. I definitely think next movie will 100% get it, and that's why it's kind of hard to critique it because you know it's coming. But I just spent 2.5 hours in a theater, and I never felt any sort of payoff really in regards to an ending.
I think that's the thing about like any kind of, it's hard to really judge like part 1 of a larger story because like the next part kind of always like recontextualize like this movie. Yeah. So if that being the case, like it is a little bit kind of hard to critique the story, I guess. But I would say early on the story really is like they really hone on the emotion and like his family, which I did like because really it starts off with Gwen and her dad and like a lot of action stuff like that. But then once you get to Miles for that first probably like 30 minutes or so with him, it's mostly pretty chill. It's his family, you kind of get to know them more, which I think that's kind of how the movie benefits from this longer runtime too. It really does allow for more character moments, which I did like.
Yeah, I think sadly though, in terms of like character moments, it focuses more on the overall story. So once you get out of that first 30 minutes, it kind of becomes big scale Spider-Man on Spider-Man.
Get your exposition.
And I think also to an extent it focuses on cameo. And I will not lie though, I do think they did an amazing job of implementing them. Like there's this one scene where they're all talking to Miles about how he has to lose something, and Spectacular Spider-Man just jumps in there and starts talking, and it's like, yeah, that is fan servicey a little bit. And then like when they go through all the different universes losing their Ben, like you see Andrew crying and stuff like that, Andrew crying to Gwen's dad, and so you see all of these small things, and yeah, they're fan servicey, but they also work to an extent. So again, I think it works, but it's also, at its core, I think since the story didn't hit 100% for me, it ends up leaning more fan servicey, sadly.
Yeah, I mean, I said like even the first movie. I mean, both these films are kind of both a celebration of the character. So of course, I mean, there were going to be definitely some cameos, especially with all the different Spider-Man in this movie. But I thought overall the cameos were executed pretty well for the most part. Like even like kind of what you said, I like how they did most of them where it was like kind of very casual things. Yeah,
and honestly,
the only one I was kind of stuck out was the Don Glover one, where you kind of had a little pause and then, like that was kind of a setup. Like people would be like, oh, like. But besides that, like, that was probably the most like MCU-esque one. Yeah. But everything else was kind of like casual, which I like.
I think why it worked is because any Spider-Man could have said it. They just made the Spider-Man that we knew say instead of some like randomly designed ones in the background. But I think, okay, cameos aside, story aside, I want to talk specifically about Miles just because he's a main character. But in this movie, he doesn't, like, it feels like it for a little bit. But it just, again, it feels like they're doing too much of that overall story setup. And we had talked about this with someone else we watched the movie with right after. They had mentioned Dune Part 1 does an amazing job of feeling like a coming-of-age story while also feeling like a story that in itself is entertaining, but also sets up the next part. And, like, obviously, like, I get what you're saying, because if you, like, generalize it to an extent, you can just be like, oh yeah, he wants to be like the other Spider-Man. That's why he wanted to hang out with Peter B. Parker. That's why he wanted to hang out with Gwen Stacy more. It's like all of these external elements are great in the movie, but I don't feel like they connect back to Miles enough, sadly. Like it feels like they're all there to be there, but other than that one like monologue by Miguel O'Hara, you don't really get much of his character development. Like all you really find out about Miles is the whole thing about the spider like biting him from a different universe. That is all great. Like that's all amazing work, but you never also, sorry, I just thought about this, but there's never really also like an overarching villain for this movie. Like you think about it like Paul, like obviously I'm kind of circling back to Dune here, but like in that movie there's not really a villain. Like obviously you have the Harkonnens, the Harkonnens as a whole, but in this one it's like Spot's in the movie for like 15 minutes maybe, and then Miguel O'Hara's in the movie for like 15 minutes maybe. But yet we still didn't get a coming of age feel, at least to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think they definitely tried to do something different with like
I think they tried to do too much
narrative, but yeah, it did feel like I don't know, I can't say like they did too much, but like honestly, I do feel like this movie could have probably just been like put into like the first half of like a larger movie. Like I don't think this had to be like
its own film.
This part of the story. I don't think this had to be stretched out to be a whole part 2 kind of. Like, I mean, part 1 kind of story. Like,
yeah, I agree.
I think that maybe some things could have been a little rusty. Even, like, but I don't know. Because, again, like, part 2 could really help all this stuff pay off. Like, the Gwen stuff. Because they honed in on her and her dad a lot. Gwen, Spider-Gwen and her dad. So I think that's going to have kind of a payoff maybe in the second movie and, like, third. But, like, that's the hard part is really seeing how this next film will kind of...
I think the next... Like, I genuinely think the final one could be the best of the 3. But they had to tank this movie. They had to basically let this movie be the whole setup, which it kind of sucks in the sense of like I see what they wanted to go for in terms of like a coming of age and all that kind of stuff. I get it. I get the vision, but I just don't think they executed it in a way that was like that made it like the problem is it was entertaining the whole time. Like that's why I hate complaining about it, is because it was entertaining the whole time. But like by the time that's what I'm saying is like it's so much fun. It's hilarious. The theater was laughing the whole time.
A great comedy.
And like I think also writing wise, like in its own contained thing, it's a very tight script. Pretty much every joke landed. Like there's not a like
I would say most
it was really great. But again. My problem just falls on the overall story. Like it didn't. By the time I got to the end of this movie, it didn't feel like what I had watched was worth it. In the sense of like I never felt any sort of completion at all. But like again, circling back to Dune, when Paul wins that final fight, you feel like a growth inside of you. Like okay, Paul has changed. He's ready. He's ready to move on and become a different person. You don't get any of that with any character in this movie, and that's my problem story-wise. But again, everything else I absolutely love. I feel like I'm on this movie a lot right now. It's just because I'm frustrated that I love every element of this movie so much, except for that very little bit at the end, and it's just frustrating to me. That's it.
And I get it, like, I mean, obviously with a part one of a story, like, you kind of always feel like a little bit like, like that cliffhanger, of course. But I think even with that being the case, like, this movie, I don't know, by the end of it, it was just hard for me. I didn't really feel like, I don't know, I didn't really feel like anything. Like, it was weird, like it just happened. I was like, oh, okay, like, it's over. It was, that was it. I didn't really feel like, what's gonna happen?
Yeah, because it's like all the Spider-Men get together, and then they're like, oh my god, we're gonna go save Miles, and like that, and then it just ends. And you're like, honestly, as I was watching the movie, I thought that they were going to get to the point where Miles' dad is about to die. Miles saves his dad, and then that causes a multiversal anomaly in the canon or whatever. Yeah. And I'm like, that feels like a great place to end this movie. Right. But I also think, like you said about the Gwen thing, they spend so much time with all these other characters to set up for another movie, where if you feel like, if they cut that down just a little bit, you could have definitely gotten to Miles saving his dad.
Well, I guess we don't know if that's going to happen, though, because he's in a different universe. But...
Well, yeah. I'm assuming, my theory, I guess, for beginning of Beyond the Spider-Verse is that Gwen and that team, they're going to go to Earth 42, they're going to get Miles, and then they're going to go back to his dad's universe, and then Miles is still going to try to save him, or something along those lines, because they made the fact that his dad is going to die such a big deal in this movie. Yeah. So I feel like there has to be some sort of revelation in that regard, but... I don't really know, dude. I'm excited to sit on the movie, and again, watch out for my ranking of all of the Spider-Man movies, which will be out on the channel later this weekend, because I'm excited to sit on it, think about it more. But as of now, I think it's probably in my top 5 Spider-Man movies. Like, it's an amazing movie.
It's so great.
It's like, I've been on it a lot, but I'm kind of tainted by that ending a little bit. But I think we give final scores now. I'm gonna go 8 out of 10. What would you go?
Probably 8 too. Like, this movie is still great. Like, I think everyone should go see it. Like, I think it has a lot of good themes, and thematically it's really strong. But
there's a lot. The thing is, there's a lot of great elements in the movie. There's a lot of great elements.
I mean, really,
in the movie.
This movie is still like, compared to probably most of the animated films right now. Like,
okay, honestly, in terms of movies in general, it's fucking amazing. Like,
it's just like the first one. I think our bar, I think both our expectations were pretty high going in. So I think that's probably the only reason we're being kind of very critical of like certain
aspects. I think it's also because we love the first one so much, and I was excited because it felt like they were just gonna like take quite literally like every element that you would put on paper for the first one and multiply by 100.
Exactly.
And they did that with every single element except for like the emotional element, in my opinion. And that's what I like the most about the first one, is that like, it was a Spider-Man movie, it was an animated movie, it was beautiful, but it also like could make a grown man cry. Like, it is like it's a very, very emotional movie, and this one just didn't strike that specific chord for me. But 8 out of 10 for both of us. Again, let me know what you guys thought of the movie in the comments down below. Feel free to spoil away, and stay tuned for my ranking of Spider-Man movies later this weekend on the channel. But thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.